Did you know that Polish pilots were defending us at the Battle of Britain against the German Luftwaffe? Well, let's explore a little bit more.
The RAF came, facing odds of 6, 8, 10 to 1, and dove in, shouting the old hunting cry, tally-ho!
They're known as the Few, the pilots who defended Britain against the German Luftwaffe during the Battle of Britain. Images of these brave airmen epitomise Britain's defiance in the summer of 1940. These pilots came from across the globe, from New Zealand, Canada, Ireland, the United States, and from the occupied nations of Eastern Europe.
I just want to make a quick point. During the war, Britain was so accepting of these people from other colonies of the empire, should I say, but also other countries such as Poland. It's such a shame that afterwards there was such a divide when they had done so much for us.
Czechoslovakia and Poland. They came together to defend the last staging point for a future liberation of Europe. The largest foreign contingent to fight in the Battle of Britain were the Polish. Over 5 devastating weeks, Poland had been crushed by invaders from Germany and the Soviet Union. Tens of thousands of Polish servicemen escaped to France to continue the fight. When Blitzkrieg swept through Western Europe, pilots of the Polish Air Force relished the chance to fight the Germans again. But despite their battle experience, the French were reluctant to let them fly.
In September 1939, Poland was rapidly overrun by the German Blitzkrieg. It was nothing really to do with Poland's fighting ability. In fact, their air force was very good, they were very well trained, and they took only the best people. The problem was they were using obsolete aircraft, and they didn't really stand much of a chance against the modern German fighters, such as the Bf-109 and Bf-110. And generally, the modern warfare style the Germans were using just overran the country very quickly. And
that's a really interesting point, because I've said this in a previous video about inventions, but war seems to have the effect of technology improving a lot quicker because there's a necessity to outdo your opponent. And so this was clearly a situation here where the Nazis had developed some serious technology in their aircrafts, which the Polish weren't able to keep up with. This tells this story here.
It wouldn't be the last.
With the fall of France, thousands of Polish airmen arrived in Britain. Tired of defeat, they nicknamed it the Island of Last Hope.
The British reaction to the Poles at the time was reticent and cautious, I suppose. They'd seen how quickly Poland had been overrun and thought perhaps they weren't really up to the task. And the French had also thought this as well when many of them had fled to France to continue the fight. But they'd soon found out how good the Poles actually were. And eventually the British would find out too. They actually had very experienced, very skilled pilots.
Polish pilots were soon flying with various RAF units. However, as well as negative preconceptions, the Polish had other challenges to overcome to fly with Fighter Command.
They did have problems. Obviously the language barrier was obviously the main one, but it wasn't just things like this. It was getting used to modern fighters with retractable undercarriages that went up and down. The ones they'd had were obsolete fighters. On top of that, they had the metric system. They had to get used to reading in miles an hour rather than kilometres an hour, and also getting used to things such as you push forward to accelerate a British fighter, where you pull back on the stick with the Polish aircraft. So it's things like that they had.
I think that makes it all very much more impressive that the Poles, when they came over, they had to learn so much extra to keep up with the British, but clearly the talent they had outweighed the knowledge of the modern fighters that they didn't have in their country. So that is even more of an achievement for the Poles.
To get used to.
But they persevered. Equipped with the Hurricanes and Spitfires of the RAF, the Polish had the chance to fight the Germans on equal terms. And despite the challenges they faced, their skill in the air was unquestionable.
I would also like to very quickly add the Spitfire in 1936 first took off from Eastleigh Airport, now Southampton Airport, and that's where I am. I live now in Eastleigh, and there's a lot of Spitfire memorabilia. That our football team is the Spitfires. So the Spitfire is a big part of Eastleigh, where I'm from.
Of all the Polish airmen that came to Britain, there was a realisation they might be worth putting them into their own squadrons, in this case 302 and 303. Now, they are formed relatively late into the battle, into August, but from the very start, they're incredibly successful. And in the case of 303 Squadron, they are the most successful Allied squadron during the Battle of the Britain. With the Poles, the way they fight, they get very close to the enemy before they open fire, which is a dangerous thing to do, but it does ensure a kill more often than not. They're driven by something very different from the British in the sense that Britain is not occupied. It may have been attacked, but it's not the same as having your country occupied by an enemy force. So they're very, very keen, as with the Czechs, to bring the battle to the Germans.
I think that sort of sums up what I'm learning about Poland, is that they've been through a lot over the years, and everything they've been through is in their sort of memory. So the Poles have to fight back. They can't just sit off, whereas quite often the British can, because we're on an island, we can sit back, wait and defend. Whereas the Poles had to take it to the enemy, had to be, attack is the best form of defence. And that seems to be what happened in the Battle of Britain here for the Poles.
In August, German attacks intensified. On the 24th, Sergeant Antony Giovatsky claimed 5 German bombers during 3 sorties, becoming one of only 3 pilots to achieve the status of ace in a day. The 2 Polish squadrons 302 and 303 entered service the same month. 302 Squadron excelled in its defence of London in September, accounting for 9 aircraft on the 18th of September alone. By the end of the battle, its score had reached 18, plus a further 12 probable kills. The contribution of 303 Squadron has become legend.
One particular group captain decided to test one of the squadrons just to see what their claims were. He came back from one sortie quite shaken, saying, oh yes, they do in fact get what they say they get. 303 Squadron has the highest kill count of any squadron during the battle. Their kill ratio is something in the region of 14-1. Their ace pilot is Josef Franciszek, who ironically is not a Pole, he's a Czech, but he prefers to fly with the Poles. And he becomes the highest scoring pilot of the Battle of Britain with 17 confirmed kills.
In total, during the Battle of Britain, 146 Polish pilots served with the RAF across numerous units and the 2 Polish squadrons. They accounted for more than 200 kills. But such a feat came at a cost. 29 Polish pilots lost their lives during the Battle of Britain, including Józef Franciszka, who was killed in an accident that has never been explained in October 1940. Commander-in-Chief of Fighter Command Hugh Dowding, who had questioned the skill of the Polish pilots at the start of the battle, summarised their contribution in these words: "Had it not been for the magnificent work of the Polish squadrons and their unsurpassed gallantry, I hesitate to say the outcome of the battle would have been the same."
Wow.
The Polish pilots became instant celebrities.
The American media saw them as the sort of glamour boys of the Battle of Britain. Yeah, they were very well received here, them and the Czechs.
That is some serious high praise in basically saying if we didn't have the Poles helping us, the outcome is certainly not certain that the result would have been the same. And that is some serious high praise, that we almost couldn't do it without the Poles.
Their contribution was well marked, and their aggressiveness in taking the fight to the Luftwaffe was recognised by all, I think.
The Polish Air Force continued to serve with the RAF until the end of the war. The Polish War Memorial at RAF Northolt lists the names of more than 1,900 personnel who lost their lives. After the war, some airmen chose to remain in Britain, and they continued to work for the RAF, mostly as flight instructors. Others returned to Poland, by then under Soviet occupation. Under the communist regime, Polish pilots who had fought in the West were barred from flying in the Polish Air Force, and many were imprisoned on trumped-up charges of espionage.
What?
The Polish pilots of the Battle of Britain would have to wait until 1953 and the death of Stalin before some of them were able to take to the skies again.
That seems bittersweet in the end, doesn't it? For personally, I had no idea about the contribution that Poles made at the Battle of Britain and how vital they were. I had no idea at all. And to say that these guys were legendary, I don't think that's true, because I don't think many people, especially in modern times now, know about that. They don't know about the contribution made by the Polish. But how sad is that about, the ones that ended up going back to Poland really weren't recognized for the achievements because it was under Soviet occupation. It's just like, that's such a shame. It's such a shame for what you would class as heroes. They weren't treated like it. But it's really interesting. I love learning about things like this and educating myself. I hope you learned something possibly new as well. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to see our trips to Poland, then check out our vlog channel in the description below, or you can go to charlieandrob.com. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.